Anin, Jumaginish Indigenous cause. I think today that would be a good day to talk about trauma. Whether you want to admit it or not, most substance use disorders have their root in some kind of trauma, whether it's childhood, adulthood, and I think maybe a better term for trauma is post traumatic stress. Personally, myself, when I started on my recovery journey, I thought that abstinence was all there was to it, and I think anybody who's spent some time getting right realizes after a while that you have to start dealing with those feelings that you didn't really, I never really said, oh, I had a bad childhood, so I'm just going to be wasted all the time. I did not know that that's what was making me be wasted all the time. So after a couple of years of abstinence, I now I have all these emotions to deal with, and I'm gonna say something. I'm not a professional, but I'm probably gonna say what really worked the best for me was to go see the VA shrink, or whatever kind of mental health you can get a hold of. And there was a lot of things that were deep in my childhood. I was physically, psychologically, sexually abused growing up. I was a mess before I went in the military, and I was a bigger mess when I got out. And a lot of this, here's a good story. So when I was 9 years old, I back then we all sat down and watched TV, so we were watching 60 Minutes, and they had a special on Valium addiction. And I remember one of the women on there, they asked her, well, why do you take Valium? And she said, to feel good. So at 9 years old, I didn't equate to, feeling good as catching a buzz. I equate it with the emotion as feeling good. And back then, all the pharmacies weren't linked. So my grandmother had 3 different prescriptions for Valium from 3 different doctors in 3 different cities. And just like any kid, kids get into anything. Kids are smarter than you think. At that age, I knew everything that was in that house. Everything exactly what it was, where it was. And so now I really knew what Valium was like. So at the age of 9, I start jacking my grandma's Valium because I want to feel, I'm so traumatized at that age that I just want to feel the emotion good. And, that's where my substance use started, was at age 9. And that's really sad. Most of my childhood was spent in fear and anxiety. Um, the household I grew up in, I could never do anything right. I could never say anything right. Everybody was better than me. If there was some kind of trouble, I was the last person to be believed, to believe anybody over me. And I received countless punishments because of what other people said, whether I did it or not. I received beatings till I was about 12. And my grandpa, he had this special paddle he made. And he was going to try to get me with it. And I was like, no. I wasn't stronger than him, but I could keep my hands on his arm to keep him from getting a swing at me with it. So then after that, my punishment was he cut a 2x4 on an angle to fit in the corner, and I'd have to kneel on this 2x4 on bare knees with my face in the corner for hours. So, and I was reminded every day that, obviously I'm with my grandparents, so that I was reminded every day that they did not have to take me, that I was just like my mother, and they really poisoned me against my mother in my younger years. So I never had a good relation with my life giver, ever, which is really sad and regrettable. I don't know what kind of trauma my grandparents went through to inflict that on me. And as I found out when I got older, when I started drinking with my mother's friends, that she had the same upbringing I did. My grandparents were ruthless to her. They were ruthless to me till the very end. When my grandmother died, I wasn't speaking with them. I'd kind of thought that, she was the primary villain, because my grandpa, he would just go along with whatever anybody said. I know on a good day I could convince him black was white, but he was really pretty, mean. He lied, and so I wasn't talking to him when he passed either. So, I guess that isn't really where I wanted to go with this conversation, but I must have needed to get out. But, that's the thing, is once I started getting help for my mental health, things really started to turn around. Something else that helped a lot was getting back into my spirituality. I won't even say getting back, because I didn't even know what the Native American spirituality was until I moved to Duluth in 2008. And the VA just pretty much dumped me off here and said, good luck. So, but I'm here now. I'm doing good. Good enough to share my story, and hopefully you get something from it. Spirituality, do some healing ceremonies, cedar ceremonies, go to a sweat, do what you need to do. I'm going to tell you, get some mental health help, because, nobody wants to even admit that, hey, this is a weakness that I have that I'm not dealing with properly, so I decide to use drugs and alcohol instead, or other bad behaviors. So, maybe we'll do a part 2 next week, because this wasn't exactly what I wanted to talk about today. But till next time, Gig Wobman.